You are listening to the Gird Up podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Ungemach. To gird up is an ancient way of preparing oneself for hard work or a battle ahead, and that's exactly what we are doing here. We face the real challenges hitting young Christians today through a confessional Lutheran lens. We offer a grounding place on which to stand, and we bring the ancient, timeless truths of the Christian faith to the next generation. You'll find that we're an unapologetically Lutheran voice in a culture that's awash with generic Christianity. We do not compromise on biblical doctrine. We respect the experience of the church. We recognize it, and we recognize that it is our own responsibility to preserve the true Christian faith in our own time and to pass it on. If you want to be a part of that mission, you're in the right place. Hit follow or subscribe. Make sure you leave a rating and review on whatever platform you're choosing to listen to us, and share this episode with somebody who needs community just like this one. If you'd like to support the work we do here at Gird Up, please consider making a donation. We call it a cup of coffee donation because for the price of a cup of coffee, you can help support the ministry we're doing here at Gird Up as we flood the internet with confessional content and help prepare the people of God for whatever might lie ahead. If you'd like to do that, please go to www.girdupministries.com, select to buy us a cup of coffee in the main menu, and make your donation there. And finally, if you've got questions or topics that you want to address on this show or guests that you want me to interview, send those suggestions our way via the link in the show notes below. Everything else that I've mentioned is also linked in the show notes below. So with that said, pull up a chair, take a seat. Let's talk about Jesus for a while. Our guest today is Grace Ungemach. Grace is neither my wife nor my sister, and yet she shares my last name, which is a very uncommon last name. So let's start there, Grace. Who are you, and how did you end up with my last name?
That's a great question. Hi, everybody. My name's Grace. I am married to Charlie's cousin, Jacob. So his dad's brother's son. And that's how I ended up with this wonderful and very unique, very recognizable last name that nobody knows how to say.
I've heard, I can't quantify this, but I've heard that there's less than 200 people in the whole world with the last name Ungemach.
We'll never have a problem getting our own Instagram handles and stuff.
No, there's not another one. Yep. I've found that out too. I can go Charlie U. That there's no way I'm ever gonna get a hold of that one. But if you go Ungi, like UNGE, or just the whole Ungemach, you are the one and only.
Yep. I love it.
Yep. So cool. All right, Grace, you, as you said, are married to Jacob, and Jacob is a second-year pastor in Cincinnati. Why don't we just talk about that a little bit? What's going on in Cincinnati? What's your involvement in all of that? Just talk about life a little bit.
Absolutely. It's been really fun. So Jacob, out of seminary, was assigned to start the second location for Beautiful Savior Cincinnati, which is a bigger church on the northern side of the city, so about 35 minutes from where we are. And our location is about 5 minutes from downtown. So the neighborhood that we live in, Oakley, super happening, super young, pretty dense. It's kind of more of an urban area. And we've just loved getting to know this neighborhood, living super hyper locally. For a little over a year now, we purchased a home. It's right across from where we'll be worshiping starting this Saturday. As of when we're recording this, our launch service is coming up in T-minus 2 days, which is crazy. But Cincinnati's really special. It ended up being 8 hours from where he's from and 8 hours from where I'm from. So I don't know. The Lord sometimes works in fun and mysterious ways like that. And we're super involved with a lot of run clubs, co-working spaces, all those sort of fun things. And I've really been grateful for the flexibility afforded to me by my job to be able to be involved in all of it. So I spend a lot of time getting to know people, and just making connections in the community alongside him. So it's been an adventure. It's been really fun.
Yeah, I know it looks different for everybody, but what role do you play in what Jacob has going on as a pastor? I guess answer this if you want to. Is that what you'd like? Do you like that role? Would you like it to be different? Do you see it being different if you're ever in a different setting? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think it is so different for all different pastors' wives, depending on the stage of life that you're in and the responsibilities that you have. I have loved it, and truly I wouldn't change a thing about it. I can't speak for my future self, of course, but for right now, it's just perfect. I will say, of course, in the beginning of moving to a new place, it's very difficult for a few different different reasons. Leaving all the people that you've come to know and love for 8 years, 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years at seminary, and being scattered to the four winds is definitely challenging. And then you arrive at a new place and there's no earthly reason to love it yet. And you know that this is where God has put you and it's perfect in that way. But you don't know anybody. You don't know your go-to coffee spots. You don't know necessarily where you're going to end up living. You don't have a reason to love that place when you first arrive. But now, a year removed from that initial experience, we have connections. We have people we'll go play trivia with, this, that, and the other thing. It's really becoming home, which is awesome. And in a mission start setting, all of that is ministry in like a very tangible way, which is super cool. And I think that's true no matter where you get placed. A Christian's life is ministry, of course, but it's very, very neat to be able to say, I'm going to Run Club to meet people, to tell them about Jesus, hopefully someday. And so there's nothing about that I would change by any means.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're about 8 hours from your folks and you're about 8 hours from Jacob's folks. Is that something? So this is when you're getting ready to marry a pastor, you know that that's part of the equation, right? That you could be assigned kind of anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It really could be anywhere, because you never know when like a new mission field or something like that's going to start either. So it really could be anywhere. Was that something attractive to you? Was it unattractive to you? Was that part of your consideration when you're trying to decide whether Jacob's the one or not?
Yeah, totally. I think that was definitely outside of the ultimate decision on whether Jacob was the one or not. Something that he talks about fairly often is the ability to look at his career as a pastor and say, I'm doing this because I want to, not because I have to. And so if our story changes in 30 years and we kind of pivot and go to a new path, then ultimately we're in that together at that point as well. So that didn't really weigh into the decision too much, but it's definitely an anxiety that we both had to work through together, just knowing that it could be West Coast, it could be Northeast, it could be the middle of Kansas, it could be the middle of Michigan, wherever we would have ended up is a place that we would have had to come to love. We actually did a really fun thing, and if anybody who's listening is coming up on assignment day or vicar call day, I would highly prescribe this. Every day of May, so assignment day was at the end of May, we picked from like the call report just a random place in the United States. And for 24 hours, we pretended that that's where we had been assigned. So we like got on Zillow, we, got on Instagram, we're looking up the coffee spots, like all this stuff. And it was a really good practice because we ended up learning just about anywhere can become home. Like we can find things to love about that place. So that was a good intentional way to kind of put that into practice, because it was definitely a huge anxiety, especially since both of us really wanted to be in kind of an urban area. So some of those rural spots were a little scary. They were a little scary. I had to kind of come to grips with that in advance in case that ended up being the spot.
What is the draw to an urban area for you?
That's such a fun question. I just love the sheer number of things to do on any given day. I am the type of person who just cannot sit still, be with my own thoughts, for better or worse. And so to be able to, I'm just a block off of Oakley Square, which is kind of the mini downtown of our neighborhood, to be able to walk up there anytime and there be something going on, a reason to get together with people. I just love. Another thing too, and Jacob and I both share this, is we don't have too many Wells churches in urban areas. And so I think a lot of people are maybe less inclined to that. And because we really wanted to be a part of bringing that to the country. So that's kind of another greater piece of it.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the city. I have so very much enjoyed my ministry specifically in Milwaukee,
Yeah.
but in the city. And I love the fact that you can open the door and step out on your front porch and there are just people walking past. And you go to your favorite coffee shop and you start seeing the same people and you notice patterns.
Yep.
and you get into, like, you become part of your identity, to some extent, is like molded into the fabric of the city, which is
Yeah,
so cool.
it is
And
so
at the
cool.
same time, I get so tired of people. I get so done with people, and I need to see a tree
Yeah.
and smell some fresh air every once in a
There
while.
is something to that as well, yes.
So I've got this battle going on inside of me. I loved New Ulm for the first 18 months that I was there. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, I haven't seen someone that I've never seen
Yeah,
before for a year.
this is so true. Yeah.
After 6 months, I'd seen every face in town. So then you go a whole year without seeing anybody that you've
Right?
never seen before. And there's just something missing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then from a ministry perspective, what more can you ask for than a
Right.
place with a whole lot of people? Because a whole
Yeah,
lot of people means a whole lot of souls, which means a whole lot
absolutely.
of opportunities for the gospel. So
Absolutely.
I
I
don't
love that
know.
I love that you say that. That's so funny. It is really interesting when we were in seminary and we would take trips like for our anniversary or vacation or whatever. We'd always kind of pick a big city to go and explore. But now that we live in one, oftentimes the trips that we're planning are like to different hikes that we want to do, or we went to the beach this summer, like the more outdoorsy, I guess, side of what the US has to offer. So I think the grass is kind of always greener in some ways. It's so true.
There's probably some wisdom in that.
Yeah.
Probably some wisdom in that. I know that this is a probing question, so forgive me for the nature of the question. But I know there are some, especially in our ministry schools, there are some women that just say, like, look, I want to be married to a pastor, I want to be married to a called worker, and they're looking for that. Was that you? And if it was or wasn't, why?
Ooh, I like that question. That's a good question. Honestly, I don't think I necessarily thought about it when I had picked MLC to go to college. I think a lot of people like kind of made that. I don't know that it's a joke necessarily, but oh, watch out, you might marry a pastor or whatever. I didn't really have any feelings strongly toward or against that. So I guess my answer is neither. Is that fair?
That's a fair answer. What do you think the biggest adjustment has been to not to your new place? And you get a little taste of it during vicar year, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's just different when he's the pastor.
Yeah.
What would you say the biggest shift was for you as the wife of the pastor?
That's an excellent question. I think something that I didn't necessarily expect, and I don't know if this is a universal experience or not, I haven't really chatted with anybody about this particular thing, but oftentimes people will bring ideas to me first, whether it's like ideas for what our mission's going to look like or how to bring people in. Some of the ideas are good, some of them are not. They'll kind of field test them on me. I wonder to like see how I'll react or use me as kind of like a mouthpiece to Jacob, which is interesting. And I've really tried to kind of shut that down in a productive way, and direct people, that's a lovely idea. You should talk to Jake about that. I think people assume maybe a higher level of involvement on my part than is reality. And that's fair. I think I probably did that with my pastors and their wives growing up too. But that was something I didn't necessarily see coming, was just that the two of us are seen as kind of one piece together of leading the church, when really I try as much as I can to let him rock and roll with that and then just serve in whatever way in whatever lane suits me the best. Yeah, that was a surprise.
Well, and not to put words in your mouth, but that's not your job, right?
Right.
You're not the pastor. You didn't get a call to be pastor's wife.
Right.
And there may be some places and positions where that is the case.
Yeah,
I don't know.
totally.
And there may be some pastors' wives who embrace that role, but it's not an expectation going in.
Right, right. And you don't want to set up unhealthy communication patterns either. I want people to be direct, right to him rather than through me. Totally. Boundaries.
So I was going to ask this later, but since you brought up boundaries, where do you have and it's okay if you don't, but do you have like a system, if you will, or do you have a way of deciding where the boundaries are going to be?
Mm.
And where do you draw, especially when, like, for the first year that you guys were in Cincinnati, I mean, Jacob doesn't really have a congregation to serve, right? And you're working out of the apartment and so forth.
Yeah.
It's real easy to just not have any boundaries between personal life and professional life.
Yeah.
So have you drawn boundaries? Where have you drawn boundaries? And how have you decided where the boundaries should be?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. Yeah, definitely in this first year, that was a challenge. And I'm really looking forward to, honestly, launch on Saturday and just starting to have a really regular routine with church so that we can start to establish a little bit more clear where it starts and stops. Um, I think to some extent it's probably a feature rather than a bug that I was so involved in the first year, just creating relationships, like, and truly I would have done that whether we were at a mission church or not, just because I need people here too. But I think that has definitely been a benefit. There were, of course, some days though where you come back together at night or you leave run club or whatever, and it just feels overwhelming. Like the weight of building this church feels like it's resting on your shoulders. And I know he has felt that too. Ultimately, that is incorrect. It's not us that's doing it. We're a piece of the workflow, but we're not the workflow. I think for me, I've been really involved now that we've started preview services in music. I do music every week with guitar and with vocals. And so that's kind of a good channel for me to say, this is how I serve my church. And then from there, I think moving forward, just kind of leaving it there. If there are ways that I think I can help and step up, I'll certainly do that. But I think it's important to maybe be a little bit ruthless about those boundaries. It can feel kind of mean, or at least it has in my heart. It's felt mean to say no to some things. But the idea that I always think of, and I heard this in a podcast years ago, but is, do you love this thing enough to say no to it right now? And I just love that. And that rings in my ears and my head a lot when I'm deciding whether or not to take on a new responsibility. I think it's going to be really important if we want this to be a long marathon rather than a sprint, to not form resentment against this thing personally in my heart, and saying no is going to be a part of that plan. So those are my thoughts on boundaries. It's still being clarified, I think, and it will be a little bit more in this next year, just because things were kind of chaotic in the first year, as they should be.
Yeah. Yeah, and as life changes and things ebb and flow, those boundaries sometimes change too, and that's just a
Totally.
natural part of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you come up, and it happens to everybody, maybe it hasn't happened for you yet, but I think it happens to everybody, kind of whatever you're doing and wherever you are, and where you have one of those, boy, things would be easier if we just weren't doing this days, you know what I'm talking
Oh
about?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How do you personally deal with those kind of moments? What do you do with that?
Yeah. Ugh. That, again, you're just killing it with the questions. You do that. You do this, don't you? You interview people for podcasts. That's a great question. I think that's taken a lot of practicing two things, which are kind of intertwined. One would be contentment, and the other would be gratitude, which sounds so like fluffy and flowery, and I don't mean it to sound like that, but just the recognition. This has really happened for me in even the last couple months, that there would be things that I don't like about that version of life too. There would be plenty of things that I would find wrong with that version of life. It's just who I am. I think to some extent it's who all of us are. Uh, Again, the grass is always greener kind of thing. But then just practicing that gratitude. I was in an Uber the other day because our car broke down, and it was just kind of an awful day. But I ended up in an Uber with this guy, and he was trying to build a web design business, like a freelance agency. And I was telling him about what I do, and he said, "Oh, that is my dream." He said, "That is my dream. I'm driving Ubers right now, but that is my dream." And it was just this moment of like, thank you, Lord, I needed that today. When I'm like stressed out about the car breaking down, but I'm not at a 9 to 5. I own my own business. I can be here right now. I have all the flexibility in the world. Just like take a moment and be grateful. So I think back to that moment a lot, specifically with my work, but I think that applies kind of overall in a lot of settings.
Yeah.
Could always be better.
Yeah. Yeah. I I count myself lucky that I genuinely, even when sometimes you just have a day that sucks, but I genuinely can't, what I'm doing now and where I'm at, I can't think of anything else I would rather be doing. Like there's nowhere else and nothing else I'd rather be doing right now.
Yeah.
And that has not always been true, and it probably won't always be true.
Yeah.
But what a blessing to be able to just sit in that and enjoy that.
Yeah.
And even when the day is hard, to be able to fall back on that. And part of my thanksgiving to God, I guess, with regard to that is just a thanks for the courage it took to do the just, in a lot of people's eyes, wild and crazy thing that it took to end up here. Like, who goes back to school
Yeah.
at 27, like, literally sells all their furniture, gets rid of everything, packs up a car, and goes to... When I moved out of my apartment in Milwaukee, I didn't have a place to live in New Ulm yet.
Yeah.
Like, there is... we were looking up storage units to put
Right.
the few things I did take with, because I thought I was going to
Hey,
end up
here we
living in a
go.
hotel.
Right.
So I have a hard time saying I was courageous even to do that, right? But it did take some courage, and
yeah.
it did take some ganas, or whatever word you want to use, in order to do that. Like any new undertaking is going to take, because it's risky, right?
It is. It is risky.
It's risky. And part of the way that the Lord has knit us together is not... we often, and this is one of my favorite things to harp on, but we often, when we think about that idea that the Lord has knit us together, we think about the physical aspect, right? He gave me just the right toes and just the right fingers, and he made my eyes blue and decided I was going to be bald and so forth. And that's all gospel. And that's true. All of that is true. But he also gave me the gifts and abilities and things that he gave me. And he also laid some desires and passions on my heart.
Yeah.
And while it's not true, like, while it doesn't work out practically for everybody, I think this is a bold thing to say, and I'll probably
Do
get a
it.
little backlash.
Do
I
it.
don't care. The Lord does not want me to sit on those and go, yeah, I would like to, but I just,
Yeah.
that's not... the Lord doesn't want me to sit on that. He doesn't want me to sit on my hands. He wants me to go do courageous things
Do
in
it.
his name.
Absolutely.
So let's go do courageous things in his name.
Absolutely. Preach.
Yeah.
That'll preach.
Yeah. Amen. I appreciate that. You mentioned being good at interviewing. I have learned the hard way. I appreciate your compliment, but I've learned the hard way. You can't do this in real life. It has to be in front of a camera. If you start
Fair.
asking like these searching questions like this, just with like random people you meet at a coffee shop,
Yeah.
it gets weird fast. They're like, what are you looking for, man? So I've had to tone that back in real life a little bit, but I love it. Yeah, you mentioned that you have your own business, and it is one that has proven to be very useful for me personally, so thank you. And it also is one that I'm in your corner cheering for you, because it's something that is, frankly, it's one of my favorite pet peeves about churches.
Okay.
Is bad, well, starting out with bad websites and then just bad social media and all that. No, I'm not going to say that. It is a huge
Grinds
pet
your
peeve for
gears.
me.
Yeah.
And you have found your niche in repairing the issue, it seems. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you do, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is, you can find it at Lutheran.marketing. My tagline is know your plan, reach real people. Church marketing that spreads like good news. So I think marketing kind of gets a bad rap, and it feels a little bit icky when we put it together with the word church. But what I really am talking about is creating a visual identity. So like a logo and a website, social media posts that look really professional, really polished, really intentional. And then the second piece is giving volunteers and pastors, staff leaders, the resources, the training to be able to take those things and know how to use them practically. So I work with churches on an individual basis. We'll kind of go in, do an audit, do a makeover, refresh, whatever they need, and then make sure they have what they need to carry that into the future. So it's been about 4 years doing this. I overlapped it with my work for World Missions for multi-language productions for a couple years. I just took on a couple clients on the side, and then last August I was able to take it full time. So it's been a little over a year working my business all day every day, and it truly is the best. Like, when you say there's nothing you'd rather be doing, I can honestly say the same thing. So I feel super blessed that people trust me with that.
Yeah. When you talk about church marketing, what all, like, that's a big umbrella. What all would you say that entails?
So many different things. Of course it's logo, of course it's website, of course it's social media. It's also email, it's YouTube. Ultimately though, all of it kind of boils down to communication psychology or strategy. And what I mean by that is, let's just take this as an example. If you have a 250 word paragraph full of just awesome information about your church, you want to put that on a postcard or put that on your website or what have you, you can do that, or you can look at that paragraph, pull out 3 primary points, give them each a little icon, make them kind of punchy and easy to read, give them a little caption, whatever, expounding on the idea, and it becomes easier for the end user to read and to look at and to digest, rather than just being hit with a 250 word paragraph. So a lot of it ends up taking what a pastor or a volunteer has put together that's really, really good stuff, and just kind of reorganizing it, reformatting it so that a new visitor or the end user can actually digest that information and be visually drawn in by it. So of course there's kind of strategy pieces to it. There's best practices when it comes to paid advertising and social media and all of that. But a lot of it is just making the awesome content that people are already putting out there just easier and more accessible to get people's hands on.
Yeah. And the websites and things that you've built, like if you go on Grace's website, I mean, you just peruse through, like it's a portfolio tab, I think. And you just cruise through. A lot of the websites end up being beautiful. The resources and things are really cool and they're attractive. And when you think about, like, if you arrived in a new town and you log in and you type in, like I'm sitting here in Simpsonville right now. If I
Yeah.
typed in Lutheran Church in Simpsonville, right? Or not even Lutheran Church, but just church in
Church.
Simpsonville.
Yeah.
What's the first thing I'm going to look at with your church? Like, I'm going
Yeah.
to see that your church is there. There's going to be a hierarchy of churches on the internet, right? So there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to have numbers next to their names even. I'm going to assume the one at the top of the list is there for a reason.
Right.
I'm going to click on it and I'm going to see the website.
Yeah.
So long before people ever come walking in your doors, long before you ever get an opportunity to smile and shake hands, it does not matter what your church culture is like or what wonderful things you have going on. If they click on the website, which is like the front window looking into your church,
truly.
and they peek in the windows and they're not excited about what they see, or it's kind of dusty in there, or it smells like grandma's kitchen. Well, actually, grandma's kitchen might be good. If it smells like grandma's basement, they're like grandma's basement. If it smells like grandma's basement, like whatever metaphor you want to use, if that doesn't say, oh yeah, I want to go there, then you've got a problem.
Right.
You've got a problem.
Right. Yeah, I love that you bring that up, because it is, and the way that I like to portray it, especially in like my initial proposals for churches, is ask yourself why you have spent time, why you've spent money on your landscaping or on a riding lawnmower or what have you. Why do you think it's important to vacuum the Cheerios off of the back pew every week? Because in doing that, you do recognize that aesthetics or visuals matter in some way, shape, or form to reflect what it is that's at the core of what you do. Because that's all you have at first is just what someone can observe from the outside. And so for your digital front door to be nice and clean and just simple, easy to navigate, doesn't have to be fancy. Does not have to be fancy, but just readable, accessible is super important. And it's becoming more important really every day. So It's a soapbox of mine too, Charlie, clearly.
Now, a good Lutheran pushback to this is going to be it's the word and water, or the word and sacrament that are important, and they're the things that do the work, and word and sacrament is essential, and the website is not essential. And that, first of all, is absolutely true.
Yes.
Websites are not
Completely
essential
agree.
to church, neither are pews or anything else, right? The essential to church is people, word, and sacrament.
Yes.
Now, why should this, because if everything else is not essential, we then have to decide what the priority list is.
Yeah.
Why should this be a priority?
Yeah. That's such a good question. I mean, I think that, you mentioned it too. Some other pieces of what physically is in a church would be considered non-essential as well, whether that's stained glass or like really nicely done banners up front, this, that, or the other thing, flowers on the altar, these sorts of things. One thing I would say, although I agree it is non-essential, it's probably the least expensive way that you can put feelers out into the world. A lot of physical advertising, mailers, all those things are great, and we do those things too. There's a pretty high price tag on stuff like that. Having just a really nicely built website that does a lot of like the search engine optimization stuff for you, in the grand scheme of things over a period of months and years, it's probably going to be one of the least expensive ways that you can kind of put feelers out. So just from that perspective, I think it's something to prioritize. I think especially too, as churches look to get in touch with people who are a little younger, I think it's important. Honestly, it's where everyone's attention is on social media, in your email inboxes. I don't think that's generational, but I do think that people under the age of even, I don't know, 55 can kind of see a website and say, something about this is going to give me a virus. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it. Something's not right. It's like this sixth sense that people are starting to have kind of in like Gen X, I think, millennial, Gen Z. So just even to avoid that is going to be huge. Again, like I said, doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just nice and clean, simple, organized, consistent, and you're good to go.
You mentioned having like 3 or 4 points on a website and just clearly readable and so forth. That's going to involve some sort of like identity statement and mission statements, those kinds of things. What would you say to somebody who would make the case like, look, we give people Jesus and we're just going to put that up there and let it sit? And we're going to leave it there and we're going to trust Jesus to do his work and not do the things that you're saying we should do.
Sure.
What's your response to that?
Sure. I mean, I think to some extent that at its core is what your mission statement or your cutesy tagline or whatever is trying to get at. I think the reason that people decide to take the time to put those things together and to write them is just because they recognize the unique characteristics of the community in which their church stands. What we put out there in our community, where everybody's under the age of 32 and they're climbing the corporate ladder at Procter & Gamble or at GE Aerospace, at least have a master's degree. Everybody here is that person. Complete hustle culture. They're in the grind. We want to look at all the different facets of the gospel, and we really want to put on full display the rest that Jesus brings to us and kind of the antithesis of that hustle culture and that anxiety in your heart that you have about squeezing all you can out of this world. Like that's what really is going to resonate with people here, although at its core, it just is the gospel. Whereas if you go out to kind of a rural community, people kind of already have maybe that built-in community, that sense of seasonality to their work, but maybe something you want to highlight about, looking at all the different facets of the gospel, something a little different. And so I think the mission, vision, values, that whole concept is just a way to say, we see our community, we understand the needs generally of our community, and how are we going to put the gospel on full display for them? But I do understand how it can kind of, at least initially, feel kind of icky to try to be flashy and you should visit us because we have this cool thing going on. That's not really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to get at with that. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I've got a picture developing in my head that isn't fully fleshed yet, so bear with me. But I see it as the difference between ooh, here we go. The difference between maybe like a machine gun and a sniper rifle, right?
Ooh,
That maybe that's a
yeah,
good analogy. You can just what you're doing, and there may be settings where it's appropriate. I should stop qualifying all my statements, but there may be settings where it would be appropriate to just kind of like spray some gospel bullets around and see what they
totally,
hit.
totally.
But in most cases, it would be wiser to dial in your rifle and make sure that the gospel bullets are landing where you
Yeah,
want them to.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Okay. You have a unique perspective on churches and church life and church, even like faculty and staff and boards and all kinds of things, because you get to, as an outsider, just kind of like jump in and sit in with them for a little while and see what's going on. So I'm curious, when you're working with churches, what traits or characteristics do you see in a church that get you excited about what's going on in that congregation as somebody who's not necessarily tied to it? You're kind of a mercenary, right? You're an
Yeah,
outsider.
right.
So what are the things that get you excited about other people's churches?
I love it. So when somebody inquires about working with me, we go through some questions on Zoom that I have written down. And one of them is, tell me why you love insert city here, uh, wherever their church is. And when they can tell me 5 to 10 things right off the bat that they love about their community, that is like such a green flag to me, because that's really stuff that we can work with. Otherwise, I think just the ability to release control to myself or to whoever they're hiring to do this work. I think, and I'm chief offender number one of not being able to delegate. So it's ironic that I would bring this up, but I love when pastors or the church president, whoever I'm working with, says, rock and roll. We trust you. We know that you know what you're doing. Have at it. Let us know if you need anything from us. That just like efficiency wise is really great. And I appreciate that people afford me that. Those two things, that's really what I love to see. And we can work with anything from there.
Awesome. Awesome. I can't help but let my mind wander a little bit into the more personal side of all of this, right? We're all involved in church and we all want our churches to be better at what they do. But there's also just like a personal aspect to all of it. And it's even more personal for me, I think, because I have a platform like this that I'm trying to build and grow and so forth. Frankly, growing, I'm not by any means a celebrity. I'm not trying to say that, but a growing presence online
Yeah.
and around, right? And I can't help but be conscious of the way I present myself and the way things about me and around me even are presented online. It's always been something I'm pretty particular about, frankly, like in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Although I should even stop saying that, because at this point, social media is real life.
Yeah.
It plays a very real role in the very real lives that we lead. So I'm curious about your thoughts on like social media and things like that, just on an individual.
Mm-hmm.
You work extensively with all this stuff. Do you use social media much personally?
Yeah. I hardly ever post. Occasionally, I'll post something on my stories if it is relevant. I hardly ever post. There's a reason why I decided not to promote my business on social media. I only do my email newsletter. That's like my only internal marketing channel, because it is such a noisy place. I just find myself getting lost in the eternal doom scroll, wasting time. It has done irreparable damage to my ability to concentrate on any given task. Like, I just think overall it causes far more harm than good. And so I try to stay away from it as much as I can personally, understanding that it is a necessary evil, of course. Like, even myself, if I'm gonna go to a new coffee shop, let's say, I'm gonna look them up on Instagram first to get a feel for the vibes, know what to expect. And I
I'm
know,
glad I'm not the only one that has to do that.
yeah, I gotta get the vibes. And I know people who are church shopping are doing the same thing with the different options that are available to them for churches to visit. So it is necessary that we're in that space, but personally, I try to stay away from it as much as I can. Sometimes I'll just delete the apps off my phone, just use Meta on my computer. I need to be better about that because I really don't care for it personally.
So it's interesting. You're basically narrating my own thoughts on it, and it sounds like we have kind of a parallel battle going on.
Yeah.
Where it's something that I utilize and I use and has proven useful for me. I found I don't get a lot of attention from I don't get new people from
Mm-hmm.
social media, but I do generate when I'm posting on social media regularly, I generate a lot of excitement among the people I've already
Yes.
got,
Right.
which I think is good and useful, and frankly, I can count on those like views
Yeah.
and listens.
Right.
And that is something that I consider. And you already spoke to this a little bit. I share your feelings that social media just kind of is it is an evil, but it's a necessary evil. How do you in good conscience utilize a tool that you kind of
Don't care for.
detest at the same
Yeah,
time?
right, right. I love that question. That's where I was going to go next if you didn't bring that up. A lot of times, and I don't fault churches for this perspective. I understand where it comes from, but in discovery calls with churches, they'll say things like, we got to get Instagram going. We haven't gotten Instagram up yet because we really want to get more young people in our church. And it's like, how do I tell them? How do I tell them that isn't the only that isn't going to work as they maybe think it will. But at the same time, although we can't depend on the lottery effect of virality, if I post something, maybe something will go viral and be put in front of the eyes of every person under the age of 24 in a 4-mile radius. We can't depend on that happening. That likely won't happen. What we can depend on, which you touched on, is our existing followers being just so sold and so in love with what we put out there that they can't help but share it. And so looking at social media as an amplification of the word of mouth marketing, if you can even say that, word of mouth, that would have otherwise happened, I think is where we really need to focus our attention. And that's what I try to tell people with social media is we're not trying to make something go viral. We're not posting just to post, posting stuff that your membership or your super engaged prospects are going to want to share to their stories, to send via DMs, to put on their own feeds, because that's really where you see the amplification of social media's impact is more in the advocacy stage than early on making people aware that you exist. So that's where I kind of go. It's just a Xing of what we could have otherwise done with our mouths.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I can't help but think about also the relationship between branding and marketing. Are they the same thing? And if they're not, how are they different?
Yeah. So branding is more about making things pretty, making things look the way that you want to project a certain message about what it is that you do. And then marketing is taking all of that. So like your fonts and your colors and your messaging and your copywriting and projecting that out to as many people as possible.
How much branding? This is
Ooh, I like that. I like that. I have a template for this, and I think I shared it a while ago on my newsletter. 8 colors from super dark to super light with maybe one contrasting color in there. 8 colors, 2 fonts, one for your heading, one for your subheadings and paragraphs, your logo, and you're good. Like if you have those pieces, you have everything that you need. You can get fancy schmancy, you can add icons, you can add different patterns and different kind of accents or cool things. But as long as you have those things solid, you have them above your desk, and those are the only assets that you use on a regular basis, I think for a church, that is perfect.
what about on a personal account?
Hmm.
Do you think a Christian, and this is obviously just opinion, but Grace, what's your opinion? Do you think a Christian should be actively branding themselves, not a brand, like not a company or something like that? That's just part of the territory. Do you think as a Christian, I should be conscious of like my personal brand? Is that something I should be actively building? Is it not? I like there's just so many different questions around that. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
personal branding?
Yeah. I think that's a good question. I think it's not something that you need to worry about at the end of the day. It's not something you need to overthink unless you're trying to sell something, which I think in a lot of ways, I guess the direction I could go with this is just making sure that you're not posting things or reposting things that run perpendicular to what it is then that you say that you confess. But I think that is kind of obvious, and I don't think that's really the direction that you're going. I don't worry myself about it. I haven't put up an Instagram post, I think, in 4 years. It just, to some extent, isn't worth my time.
I'm a little jealous of that. But I disagree. I don't know
Do
if
it.
it is obvious. I don't know if it is obvious. I see so many people
Sure.
that just, well, oh yeah, here's the deal. When I'm trying to decide who I'm going to invite on the show and who I don't, one of the
Yeah.
things I do is I go find their social media and I take a look through it.
Yeah.
And there is no small list of people who I have not invited on or who don't do this to me, but don't invite yourself on my show. Okay, sorry. Another pet peeve.
I get that.
Anyway, um, anyway, there's no small list of people who I would have gladly brought
Yeah.
on, and even sometimes that I enjoy personally and consider friends and so
Yeah.
forth, that will never be on this show because I will not associate myself with
Yeah.
their online presence.
Yeah. I mean, you're so right. I think part of it too, and I'm grateful for this, although maybe it rubbed me the wrong way at the time, was the emphasis at seminary for pastors and for wives and at MLC too. Like, take anything that anyone could possibly misconstrue off of your social media. And so I think I've always had that in the back of my head. When things happen, like things have happened recently, just don't post about it because somebody's going to find a reason that whatever you posted is not in alignment with what you say that you believe. And so I think maybe I have that turning and spinning, which is helpful. But I do see what you're saying, that it can feel so anonymous to be online. And then when you go back and you scroll through your activity, like a lot of it doesn't add up. So I think you might be right. That's a fair disagreement to make.
Yeah. And this is probably different. I don't think that there's necessarily a place in this conversation that we're having right now to talk about like what the filter should be on you
Yeah.
for what, like there's the things, well, again, I don't think they are obvious. They should be obvious like if you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, don't say it online and all
Right.
that kind of stuff. Right. But I do think, well, I'm going to shift a little bit. I think that you can't help to some degree having for lack of a better term, a brand. Quentin Peterson was on the podcast a few months ago, and we talked about this a little bit with him too, which we weren't expecting to, and it's awesome that we did. I think you end up kind of with a personal brand no matter what, because you are who you are, and you do what you do, and you love what you love, and you've got habits and tendencies and identity and so forth. And if you are who you ought to be and are behaving the way you ought to behave, and your identity is firmly rooted in the one who has purchased and won you, and your online presence is just a natural outcropping of that,
Right.
I don't think you can go wrong. In fact, I think that can be a really wonderful and powerful tool for you and for the church. Every once in a while, you'll come across somebody online who will, I always kind of like quietly cheer them on, because I never comment on anything. Where you get somebody that kind of like rage posts and goes, I'm done trying to make people happy. This is what I think, and I'm saying it. And I just go, yes, even if I don't agree with what you're saying, say what you mean, say what you think, go do the thing, right? Because I think there's something that just corrodes at in a soul level in you when you're constantly trying to be and think and say something that you're not. And if you don't like who you are, change who you are. But understand that there's a basis for that too, and a lot of work that has to be done there. So rebranding yourself online isn't going to change your reality. Changing your reality very well might change your presence online. I mean, it probably will, and it should. And recognizing social media as a tool. Okay, I'm going to backtrack a little. I drive a 2014 Jeep Patriot.
Nice.
It is a rolling pile of crap.
Love
and
it.
I love it. I love it. Okay. For two reasons. One, it doesn't cost me anything
Right.
to work on it, to try and fix it. There's things I just won't fix because it doesn't matter, because it is a tool. It gets me to work and home.
Yeah.
It gets me off to do the fun things I want to do, and it gets me back. It has
Right.
4-wheel drive so I can drive it in the snow. It has 4-wheel drive so I can drive it up the side of a mountain somewhere if I want to,
Beautiful.
and it will get me back here home. Right? That's all I need it to do. I don't
Mhm.
need it to be comfortable. I don't need it to be anything else. I look at social media, or I want to look at social
Yeah.
media the same way. It is
Right.
a tool to do the things I want to do. And my platform here is, like I said at the beginning of the show, to be a voice for young Lutherans, right? I want to be the
Mhm.
Lutheran Joe Rogan. Whatever, however you want to say it, right? And one of the best ways to do that is to, like, on a video call like this, I will then use AI to pull out like 3 snippets, and
Totally.
we're going to be on Instagram, right?
Yep.
And that's all I'm going to do with it. And the Lord will use it how the Lord's going to use it. And I'm going to post it. That is going to be snippets of me talking. And that's
Yeah.
going to be my brand, if you will. But I'm not going to go curate, like how this is just what I wore to work today. There's so many things I'm not worrying about
Right. Right.
that, yeah. I'm kind of venting. Do you have any thoughts on any of that?
I love it. No, that's good. I think like the term personal brand is really just a fancy way to repackage your personality or just who you are. And I think social media too is moving in a direction of authenticity, which is such a like cliche at this point. But I think people really are starting to see through it. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, and he was making predictions about kind of the future of what it is that we're talking about. And his thought was that Gen Alpha is going to be to see this just huge pendulum swing back to touching grass, if you will, or just being connected with real people in real life. I think we have started to see that shift that people do. They just get stressed out by it. It's too much. It's too much information at any given time of day, to the point where even you see people paying for personal connection, whether that be through a co-working space, or have you gotten ads for the time left dinners? You pay to go to dinner with strangers in your city. And it's not a dating thing, it's just like a thing. Or, workout classes, different things like that. And so I think the era of the hyperactivity of social media to some extent will come to an end, or at least a bit of a different end than where it's at right now. Just because it's so exhausting. It's so exhausting.
Grace, I hear hope in your voice.
Yes. Yes.
There's really refreshing too. So many people talk about social media and the next generation and so forth, and it's just doom. Like,
Yeah.
social media is ruining us. ChatGPT just wrecked the world. It's gonna be iRobot in a few years, and it's all over.
Right.
And I appreciate that you brought it to a different. People are going to continue being people. We still are going to be. Because I can't help myself. We're still going to be the Lord's children, and we're still going to have relationships. We're still going to love each other, and we're still going to crave those things.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to hear that the trend is going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the rise of third spaces. And I think to kind of circle it back around, churches have a huge opportunity to be a part of that. Just a place where people can get together, meet other people. There's so much discourse about how difficult it is to make friends as an adult. And I think it's because of a lack of places where that interaction happens. So I think the kind of alarmist views tend to get a lot of clicks and a lot of attention, but there are plenty of people on the other end of the conversation who are optimistic or at least observant of what's also happening.
If only there was a place, like in every town or even every neighborhood, where you could get together like once a week, maybe in a morning where you don't work, and you can talk about like everything from spiritual things to physical things, and the same people show up every week,
Right.
and you get to know them over time, and maybe you drink coffee and eat donuts
Yeah,
together. If only there was a place like this that we
that'd
could
be
all
super
enjoy.
cool.
It would be. And there's a new one in Cincinnati starting this
Yes,
week.
sir. Absolutely.
All right, this is a hard turn left because we're almost out of time here, and I want to get this in. Let me think of how to. This is not what you like. Your your path at one point was not going to be digital marketing and media, and you have now come into it and you love it and you enjoy it. And it's awesome to hear you talk about it. Also very much appreciate the vulnerability and transparency that you've had, like, in talking about all of this. And this is something I've now been through too, and so it's a personal passion for me.
Yeah.
When somebody finds themselves sitting around saying, okay, this is not it. Like, where I'm at now is not it. I don't want to spend the next 40 years working this job or whatever it might be, right? What's going on right now is not it. And I need to shift, or I want to shift to something else. How do you figure out what the next thing is going to be? So maybe the question is, how did you figure it out? And how might you suggest, if a friend came to you and said that, how would you suggest they try and figure it out?
I love that. I think I'm probably a bad maybe example or picture of that, because I think to some extent this was always what I had wanted to do. Coming out of high school, I told my parents, like, I'm going to start my own business and it's going to be awesome. And they said, we love you so much. We believe that you can do that. You are going to go to college. Love you so much. And so that's kind of how I ended up on my original path. But I think circling back just felt really, really natural and came to me very easily. I do think there are kind of two things to say, though, if I were to be talking to a friend, and I have a couple times had the chance to. But one would be a thing that kind of held me back originally from stepping away from teaching was just this worry. And looking back, it didn't make any logical sense, but it felt very logical at the time. The worry that there would be nobody else. Like, if I don't teach 8th grade at this school, 8th grade is going to not have a teacher, which felt very big and very real at the time. And now looking back, me stepping away gave someone else the opportunity that was perfectly right for them. They loved everything about it. Maybe not everything, but they loved a lot about it. Stayed in the position for a long time. And so in that way, I think just releasing control and saying, God will figure it out. Somebody else is out there. They might like it more than you. They might be better than you at it. And so let go. The other piece, though, is I really like to tell, especially female teachers, this is the skills that made you good at this thing also make you really good at a lot of other things. And they're very hireable characteristics. You're organized, you have the ability to speak in front of people, you have the ability to use all sorts of tech tools. So just thinking about kind of the higher level, maybe soft skills, maybe hard skills that got you into kind of that first path, and asking yourself how those could be applied somewhere else, how they could be valuable somewhere else. And I think those two things in tandem open up a lot.
Yeah. And then to pair the dreamer side to this, or I don't know what the right word would be, maybe the visionary side, I don't know. One of the best pieces of advice that I read it, I wasn't told it, but one of the best pieces of advice I've ever read in a book was, he said, when you're making decisions like this, don't look around you and ask, what does the world need? And then try and fit yourself into that mold. Look around and say, what makes me come alive? Like, what just lights my fire? And then find a way to do that.
Yeah.
And that might not be something you can do professionally. It might be a hobby. It
Sure.
might end up being something that you do part-time. It might end up being something that you mostly just watch on TV.
Yeah.
But what makes me come alive? And now I'm going to find ways to do that.
I love that. I think that too is kind of a soapbox of mine, if you will, talking to a lot of women who really deep down in their heart want to be a part of ministry in a way that is kind of a couple steps above volunteerism, like getting paid to make this my career or at least part-time endeavor. And teaching is kind of the primary or the first suggestion that you get. And I think that's great. And it obviously works for a lot of people. It doesn't work also for quite a few people like myself. And so asking yourself, okay, I want to be a part of ministry. I want to be a part of the church. How can I, as a woman, apply my skills, my knowledge, and my ambition to something that maybe isn't the teaching ministry. And so along what you were saying, Charlie, I think there is something to be said about where do you find yourself drawn for volunteerism type stuff within the church? And asking yourself the question, is there a way to take whatever it is that you do on a given Sunday morning or Thursday morning for mornings with mommy or whatever it may be, package that up in some sort of a way and provide it as either a product or a service to multiple congregations. And that in and of itself maybe won't pan into a full-time gig, but it is a way to kind of infuse yourself into the greater ministry of the church in a way that isn't teaching necessarily. So that's a soapbox of mine. I could go on, but hopefully that makes sense in the context of our conversation.
Yeah. And maybe to think of it from a different angle, you could also ask yourself, what can I capably take off, pastor's plate, insert called worker, right? What can I take off the teacher's plates? What can I take off the pastor's plate?
Totally.
And how can I, so if it's a need at your church, it's also a need at other churches.
100%.
Maybe not every church, but at other churches.
But
right?
enough churches. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So look around. I know it's kind of the opposite of what I just said about, but that's not necessarily true either. Go like, hey, I really enjoy this thing.
Mm-hmm.
How can I do that thing for the church?
Yeah.
But instead of taking your thing and asserting it upon the church, because often that makes more work for the people involved and they're going to be hesitant to do it, right?
Right.
Instead of that, you say, this is what I'm good at. This is what I like doing.
Yep. It's handled. I
now
figured it out
within my
for
lane, within my preferred lane, what can I take off people's plates at church? And then find a way to monetize it.
Yep. Let me make it easier for you. It's already done. I've already thought through all of it. How easy can you make it for them to say yes to? All that stuff. I think there's so much more that could be done. So much of a burden that could be shared if more people were thinking like that. So I love it. I think it's super cool.
Yeah. So take it from us. If you want to be involved in church work but don't want to be a teacher, that's okay.
It's all good.
It's okay. There's life after teaching. I don't want you to leave the teaching ministry.
No.
I want you to stay in the teaching ministry for as long as you can.
Yeah.
But there's life after teaching. There's other things you can do.
It's true.
All right, Grace, it's been wonderful to have you on. Wonderful to chat with you for a while. Again, thank you for being so vulnerable with us. I know I was kind of like digging into the deep, dark corners of your heart, so I appreciate you being willing to share in that way with us. Big thanks to Grace again for joining us on the show today. If you want to be a part of the Gird Up mission, you're in the right place. Hit follow, subscribe down below, whatever platform you're listening on or watching on. If you'd like to support the work that we do here at Gird Up, consider buying us a cup of coffee. It's a call to coffee donation because it's only $5. You can do that at www.girdupministries.com. Just click buy us a cup of coffee and you can help us flood the internet with confessional Lutheran content. If you've got any questions, topics, or guest ideas, make sure you send them my way through the show notes below. This is a big one we hit on just at the end here. I'm really passionate about especially women finding places in church life other than teaching, especially at a professional level. Mm-hmm. I want to have more conversations about that. So if you got resources from me, I want to have those conversations. Same thing with just generally speaking, how do I get involved meaningfully with church if I'm not a called worker? I want to have those conversations too. So throw them at me. I want to do that. And then finally, please share this show and these episodes and things with people that you think would enjoy them, appreciate them, or for whom it might do some good. I love you. God bless you. And I look forward to talking to you again next week.